graduated from FIT in 2015 with a degree in fabric styling. She went to work on the legendary stylist Lori Goldstein for 2 years before transitioning into costume design for TV and film. Olivia has worked on such projects as Elementary on CBS, The Blacklist on NBC, Foss Verdon, FX, and more. Most recently, Olivia was the costume shopper for season 2 of Gossip Girl on HBO Max and will be joining a new costume team at the end of the month as a costume shopper. Please join me in welcoming Olivia to the stage.
Hey.
So that hopefully it's not showing in our faces. Just two stairs over. Thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
Would love to hear a little bit more about your career path that led you to here.
Yeah, so I graduated from FIT in 2015, which I felt like was recently, and then I got here and I feel absolutely ancient, so that's been cool. I graduated and started working for a fashion editor, Lori Goldstein. So I did that for about 2 years. She's a stylist and has a line on QVC, weirdly. So I sort of fell into that, and about 2 years in, I was like, I'm not the happiest I've ever been here. It wasn't about the specific environment or anything. It was just the job was like not for me. Mm-hmm. So I had interned on a TV show when I was here and reached out to that designer, and she was like, we need a PA, basically just like runs errands. And I was like, I'll do it. Since then, I've just been like crawling up and have been super lucky to get to work on some really amazing projects.
That's great. Before I move forward with what you've been working on, or PA and beyond, how did you get your first job at a school?
Yes.
Stylist.
So I was her intern, and she hired me to have like a full-time position after school. So I was super lucky. Like the last day of my internship, they called me in and they were like, we want to offer you a position. So of course that was like a huge weight off my back.
That's great.
And yeah, I got that internship with her. She was at an event for FIT that I was at for the Honor Society. And I just went up to her and was like, I just wanted to tell you, I've just always really admired your work, and like just wanted to say hi, and like it's cool that you're here. And I thought she was gonna be like, never speak to me again. But instead she was like, do you want an internship?
That's great.
Yeah, so first advice, just talk to everybody.
Yeah.
Just walk up to any human.
Be brave.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah. And I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about what your role was like there. Obviously, it wasn't your cup of tea, but might be someone else's.
Yeah, so I was the global assistant of product development and merchandising for her QVC line. So when I was there, I was in charge of launching her line on 4 international QVC channels, as well as like helping to design and choose colorways and everything for her collection. Which did end up helping me costume-wise in a lot of weird ways you wouldn't expect, because you just sort of know, you're like, oh, that pattern looks very bad on TV. So we can't use that, and you understand what works better on different body shapes when you're trying to make something that appeals to everybody. You learn what works for everyone, kind of. Yeah.
That's great. Really cool. So you mentioned that your first job in costume design was as a PA on Elementary.
Yes.
Correct? Okay. And what is that job like?
Yeah, so that's a production assistant. So each department on a film set has production assistants. It's basically a lot of errands. So picking things up, returning items that don't work, a lot of driving around, filing receipts, things like that. Stuff that as you're doing it, you're like, this is boring, I hate this. But then when you move up, you're like, this is so valuable to me. So it's a lot of running errands, that kind of stuff. But also, I think it's really valuable too, because it helps you really figure out if this industry is kind of for you, because you will be like unbelievably overworked, as I'm sure a lot of you feel. You can relate to that. Yeah, so you'll work a lot, like typically minimum 12-hour days is how everything's set up. And you'll learn a lot, and a lot of people will PA for a little bit and they'll be like, no. Like, no, thank you. Or realize like I like different departments, things like that. So it's a pretty like low stakes way for you to get your feet wet and like really figure out if it's something you're interested in.
Yeah. And what is the next step usually after a PA?
So after you PA for a little bit, you can become what's called a costume coordinator. So that is basically you're like now in charge of the PAs. You're like their wrangler. I was like, I'm half babysitter, half accountant when I did that. Yeah, you're in charge of tracking the budget, scheduling fittings. You're the first person who communicates with every actor. They're like you're like the line of communication for them, and you're also just like generally in charge of anything in the office. Like I describe it as every time someone comes to you, you want to be like, not my problem, but you're like, ew, it is.
Yeah.
Like someone will come and they'll be like, there's no toilet paper. I'm like, why is this my deal? But like, then it is.
Yeah.
But so you become really good at problem solving. And typically you'll do that for a couple years. And that's actually the first job that gets you into the costume union, which is really important.
Yeah.
Once you get into the union, there are a lot of like very boring perks, like health insurance, which is so fun, 401ks, retirement. As I said, I'm old, so I'm gonna need that soon. No, so you get a lot of really great stuff, and you get a lot more protections at work. Like if something bad is happening, like on the blacklist, we had like a mold situation with the clothes, and the union was able to be like, okay, no one's working until the mold is taken care of.
Wow.
Like this is ridiculous. Whereas on a non-union project, they were like, not our problem.
Yeah.
So that's a really important part of being a costume coordinator, and also just getting to understand how everything works, like getting to look at the budget, getting to talk to actors, deal with all that stuff. It's a very, very important job that should be, it's kind of crazy. It's like a bunch of like, when I was like 25 and doing it, I was like, I shouldn't be doing this. But yeah, so that's your next step. Yeah.
Okay. And then, I'm wondering if you can actually outline the whole path to,
Yeah.
Head costume designer.
Totally. So after you become coordinator, there's like, I think the biggest gap between jobs, like the biggest difference happens after you're a coordinator. You'll become a costume shopper, which is like you're one of the assistant costume designers, still union, but your job is to shop for things. So the designer will sit with you, and each designer has a different way of going over everything, and they'll tell you what they generally need for fittings. You will go out to all the stores here and buy them a bunch of options, and then you'll do the same thing the next day.
Yeah.
So yeah, and
And
that's
return them?
you don't have to. The PAs do.
Okay, good.
We've crossed that bridge already. Thankfully, yeah. So you do. So you're shopping a lot, which is great.
Sounds
and
like
then
a dream job for a lot of people.
it is. Yeah, it is. And then sometimes in the winter you're like, not so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, still for sure. And then after that, you're just like a general assistant costume designer, which you'll create the budget. You'll just be the designer's right-hand person. You'll do the fittings with the designers. You'll be on set, establishing looks, things like that. And it depends on the job too. Like I was a costume shopper on Gossip Girl, and it was very much like a hybrid position. Like I was constantly on set. I was always helping, with fittings, things like that. So it depends on the job. And then after that, you'll be a costume designer, which is when you get to, like you're the one who hires the whole team, like picks everybody, has your people. The overall vision is yours, that kind of stuff. And this is all for like large union shows. When you do smaller non-union projects, there's a much smaller team. So I just did this Netflix movie. I was the costume designer of this Turkish drama that was filming here. Oh. And there were like 3 of us on the team. So it was so small. And so like things will be differently. So you'll usually work higher positions on non-union projects, sort of in tandem with moving up in union shows as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it does. So I wonder, I'm looking at your roster of shows. Mm-hmm. Was there ever a historical, like the Blacklist I feel like had a lot in the past.
So Fosse Verdon took place from the 30s to the 80s.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it was all about real people. So that was the first job I got where I was like, I can't believe they're letting me work on this. Kind of. It was my first job as not being a PA in like massive show. Yeah, so that was a lot of recreations. Like the show opens with the scene from Sweet Charity that we had to completely recreate all of the costumes for.
Wow.
And then had to recreate, real Bob Fosse accepting his Emmy. We're like, well, he really did it, and there's footage of it, so we have to create that exact thing. And so much work. We had an assistant costume designer. Her job was just to go fabric swatching and would just come back with tons and tons of options. And of course, all the footage is so grainy, so you're like trying to blow everything up, and it's just crazy. So that was one of the most interesting jobs I've ever worked on because it was so much research.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Was that more construction that you were doing on those
Oh
costumes?
yeah. So that was a lot. So of course, like, it would be so great if we could just go to Big Beacon's Closet and find an exact replica of a sweet charity dress for $60, but unfortunately, it's not really the case. Yeah, so mostly construction for that specific stuff, and then a lot of vintage shopping and rentals as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool. So how did you feel like your degree prepared you for this path? Or did you feel it did?
Yeah, so I did my first 2 years, and it used to be called FMM. I think it's called something else now.
Anyone else studying in that? Like a fabric and
There was
styling?
like FMM, it was fashion merchandising management, was my first 2 years, and my last
That's called FBM now.
FBM, okay.
Yes. Yeah, and I know we have some students from that.
Cool. And then my last 2 years were in fabric styling, which I also don't know if that's still here, but it was like a mixture of trend forecasting and photo styling, that kind of stuff. Yeah, it did help me a lot, like mostly with mood boards. And we'd always kind of joke about how are we still making more mood boards? This is so stupid, but mood boards are very important in costume design. So that was actually super helpful to make those constantly.
Well, that's really salient. I have some students here that are actually working on a first mood board for a different class. So.
You guys, I promise it's important. Like, it's super, we used to joke, we'd be like, we're getting a degree in collages, but no, it's really great. And mood boards, yeah. Yes, for sure.
That's great. So how do you usually go about finding a new project when one ends? Since it's also very different from the fashion design world, because in design you just have a job and it lasts forever, but in obviously in costume design it ends. It has a certain end.
Yeah.
Unless it's like the blacklist, I guess, which just goes
Oh my God, just goes on forever. Yeah, apparently. Yeah. Yeah, so it varies. It's funny because people ask me this a lot, and I'm like, I haven't applied for a job in like 4 years. Like, it just
very common comments I've heard from people.
Yeah, you're like, no, I don't even know how I would do that. The last 2 years have really just been people reaching out to me. Like, I got your number from this person. Are you available? That kind of stuff. And then you just go from there. And then for this Turkish movie, it was a producer I'd worked with as an assistant costume designer a few years ago. It was like, hey, I'm doing this thing. It's like lower budget. Do you want to design? So it's really, really about the contacts that you make, which is a really scary thing to think of, like, before you're in the industry, because I didn't know anybody in film. I feel like that's really important to say. Like, a lot of people I know, they're like, you find out, like, their dad's a producer. You're like, oh, okay. Yeah. But for me, I didn't know anybody. I didn't know anything. So I think it's really important to say that you definitely don't, it definitely gives you a leg up if you, like, have, like, some nepotism going on. But if you don't, it's, like, super possible, and you make contacts so quickly. It's like, once you get your first PA job, if you're not, like, totally insane, like, you're basically in. Because people always need good people. So you'll be like, oh, I met this girl. She helped us for, like, 3 days, but she was so great. Like, hire her. So, yeah, it's really, really word of mouth.
That's great. Yeah. You know, it's interesting. I have actually had some guests in who did design work. They were fashion designers, and they went and got their MFA rather. Got a very high end from Yale, like an MFA, but she came in a little higher to the industry. She came in probably at about assistant designer level, having skipped over PA and coordinator. And she actually said that she constantly regretted it because she just felt like there was so much knowledge that everyone else gained in those years that she kind of missed out on by not working up the ranks.
And I can always tell when someone hasn't, and that's not even, like, necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah.
It's just you can definitely tell when someone hasn't had to do certain things. Any job you do makes you better at any other job you're going to have. And, like, that's something I try to tell all the PAs, like, especially because it's so easy to get disgruntled when you're a PA and just be like, I'm just picking stuff up. This is so boring. And I had one who really wanted to move up to coordinator, and I was like, seriously, like, use all this time, like, you're out returning stuff. Just know every store's return policy by heart. Know where every store in the city is. Like, make sure like this stuff is getting done. Like, that's all knowledge that's going to be so important. And like you talking about writing the address in on your whatever that was.
Yeah. Assignment. Yeah.
Yes, like that's the kind of stuff when I was a coordinator with my PAs, like they'd write up a receipt and I'd be like, you did this wrong. This needs to be in this order. I know this seems really like effed up of me or like annoying, but please fix it. And I've had a bunch of them come to me after they moved up to coordinator and they're like, we did think you were being really annoying, but it's so annoying when that's like messed up and then you have to redo it and that's not your job. And I was like, that's what I'm saying. So yeah, understanding that. And yeah, it's hard because you'll be a PA and you'll be like, I'm so creative and I could design this show, but it's like, that's not your job. And even me, like as a shopper, not my job. Like, at all. So that kind of stuff, knowing like, having it in the back of your head, like, okay, I need to take this job for what it is and use this to make myself better at what I'm going to do.
Get there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Have you ever had any great designers that will take your feedback, take lower down the rank feedback?
Oh yeah. And usually for me, it's like I'll wait for them to like ask me if they had like, usually I won't just be like, I don't like that, like that's insane. But especially Eric Damon, the designer of Gossip Girl, which was really exciting for me because he designed the original and I was like the biggest fan. But he was very, very open to, if he'd give me notes for shopping, he'd be like, is there anywhere that you think that might be really good for this? Or like, he was very receptive, like, to me being like, oh, this is my friend's company. Do you want to see their stuff? And you'd be like, let's get it in here. And like he was very, very much open to that stuff. Or like, he was like, oh, things are crazy. You can shop for this guy, And I'm like, yeah, I got it. Like, it's fine.
Yeah.
So sometimes, yes, some designers do not want your input and they don't want to hear, and that's totally fine. And like, they're totally respect that. So yeah, you kind of just figure out what that person wants from you, and then like go from there. It's a tough line to toe between like overstepping and like proving yourself. You're like,
Right.
Yeah. But just like read the room, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you just touched on another reason why it's so important to network with your FIT friends because you are plugging people's brands for your friends now that you're, out there and making it. So that's another good point.
It's been exciting, yeah. I've been able to collaborate with a few. We actually, I can't say what, but some stuff will be in the press soon. We did a really fun collaboration with the school a couple months ago. So stuff's going to be...
Gossip Girl.
I can't... Through something that I did, and it's very exciting. It'll be really cool.
When it comes out, please make sure you drop
Absolutely,
me notes so in case I miss it.
Yes.
So I know this is probably a very hard question to answer, but what does a typical week look for you when you're on set or when you're working on a project?
Oh God. So as of course, like you said, who knows? Like, if for a shopper, if it's a very traditional job where you're just shopping, you'll go in the morning, sit with them, go out into the city. You'll have a PA with you all day, kind of, and then once you're done shopping, you let them know, and then you're done for the day. On Gossip Girl, so it was a lot of shopping. Usually, I'd do like 2/3 to like half my day out shopping, and then the other ones I'd either be doing fittings, I'd be dressing. If we had like a day with a lot of extras, call them background, I'd be on set dressing them, because for a contemporary show, they're supposed to come with their own things that they can wear.
Oh.
So like we'll be like, this is like the general idea of what's happening. Please bring suits and ties. But then like 80% of them will just come in the most ridiculous. You're like, yeah, we have to dress you. So you always have stuff there, just in case. And then some of them will fight you, and you're like, what? No. Like, but yeah, because they have to look like, for Gossip Girl, for a lot of scenes, like cool and young, but they can't like grab attention from the people we're showing.
Yeah.
So yeah, that kind of stuff. For this Netflix movie, I had to be on set every day because the director, like, you have to be on set to what we call establish a look, which means it's the first time the look goes to camera. So you're there like, okay, this is exactly how it should be every time. And then it goes to camera And then once it does, you're like, great, I can leave. And, you know, for this Netflix movie, it's important for you to be there because we had this costume, you know, approved. And then I get there and the guy's like, no, I want him to wear a lighter shirt because the set is different than I thought. It's like, well, I'm glad I'm here. And I thought you were going to say that, so I have this thing.
Yeah.
So that kind of stuff, it's you sort of never know. And the hours can be insane. Like, shoppers have the shortest days, so we're on a 10-hour schedule because stores close.
By union.
Yeah. So
Rules.
it's just like generally how it works. Like overall, a shopper will be on 10s, and then obviously if you go over that, you get paid for overtime. But everyone else on a set is on 12s.
Okay.
But like if you're on set, like for this Netflix movie, we did 5 days of overnight shoots. So for 5 days in a row, we were shooting from 6 p.m. to 6 a.m.
Wow.
Which is not the most fun
Yeah.
ever. Like it sounds like, oh, it's kind of cool and like a slumber. Like, no, it's not fun. But yeah, so you kind of just have to, there's not a great work-life balance, I will say, at times.
It's a little all-encompassing.
Yes, definitely. Definitely.
Have you found any tricks on what to do with your off time so that you get yourself approved?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky right now. I have like 2 more weeks off between projects.
When did you end?
I ended about a week ago.
Oh, okay.
I
Sounds
went,
like ideal amount of time.
yeah, because otherwise I'll go a little bit crazy. And I'm lucky I have something lined up after. That's not always the case. Yeah, just trying to like, I mean, a lot of it is like I have to clean my apartment and like that, like run errands, like really boring stuff. And yeah, like see all my friends. Like I'm just seeing like 3 people a day. I'm like, you guys, it's like, yes.
So thanks for that.
You're so welcome. Yeah, so kind of trying to do that and trying to have like my own hobbies outside of it, which is really hard. But trying to just not like stay inside and sleep all weekend, which is so easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that. So what does the entire process look like from research to set?
Yeah.
Even harder question, probably.
Yeah. And again, it varies on the project. So, you know, for a contemporary show like The Blacklist, like the most research you're going to have to do for that is like uniform stuff. So there's a lot of cops, there's a lot of SWAT teams, and like The Blacklist takes place in DC. So all the DC stuff, it's like, oh, we have that ready to go here. But then it's like, oh, we're doing an episode in Virginia and we need a Virginia state trooper. And you're like, what does that look like? So you have to find that and then source all of that stuff. And like we have a lady who makes our patches and everything. So you'll basically, once you read an episode or a movie, and you will kind of go through and be like, okay, here's the stuff that I need to find out about as soon as possible. So you'll go through, do that, and then like get the ball rolling. For Fosse, we just had a much longer prep time because so much of it was being built.
Yeah.
That it was just a lot more than that. Like The Blacklist, you'll get the script and they'll be like, we shoot this in 3 days. And you're like, oh, that's so great. So yeah, but Fosse, it was like, okay, in 4 months, we're doing Sweet Charity. And we were like, okay,
Yeah.
we can start from there, yeah.
Planning it out. Oh, cool. So you've mostly only done TV. Have you done any film?
Yes, I've done, after this Netflix one, 4 films?
4 films.
Yeah.
How is TV versus film different? Maybe actually with what you just said, the lead time.
The lead time, also typically the duration of the project. So Gossip Girl I was on from January to August, sorry, which is sort of the longest term project that you will have, like 8 months. And then this Netflix movie I was on for 2 months.
Okay.
So it's usually a much shorter process. Also, you get, there's like, well, in theory, there's fewer last minute surprises with the film because you have the whole script, as opposed to The Blacklist, you're shooting something one week and then you get the script for next week and you're like, why is there a masquerade ball? And you just suddenly find this out and you have 4 days to prep it, as opposed to you read a movie and you're like, oh, okay, there's a masquerade ball.
Yeah.
We have
get
2
on it.
months and
Yeah.
we'll like start getting ready. Yeah.
Yeah.
So having more time to prepare and shorter projects.
Yeah, that makes sense. Have you ever worked on anything in theater?
No, I have a lot of friends who have. Fosse was like the closest. It was a lot of like theater, TV people coming together. But theater, I'm not super confident speaking on the exact differences of that. I just know it is very different.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have heard that. I have definitely heard that from people coming in. But I mean, on one hand, you could end up designing something for theater that lives for, I mean, how long is Phantom of the Opera been running?
Exactly.
And then you have to replace things.
Exactly.
And continue to work with new people coming into it. So it's different in that way. How do you find inspiration for your shopping, for your design work?
Ooh. So honestly, like I'll keep referencing Gossip Girl because it was my most recent. That, you know, working with someone like Eric, who was such like an inspiration to me, that was really a big part of it. And, you know, when we're discussing shopping in the morning, usually I'll throw like things out there to make sure I'm on the right track. Like they might be like, we want, you know, like pop star vibes. And I'm like, okay, like Ariana or Taylor. Yeah. And then they're like, Ariana. I'm like, okay, are we talking sweetener or like positions? Which one? And it's like sweetener. I'm like, we can go on from there. Yeah. So that kind of stuff, or being like, if they mention someone, I might be like, okay, great. I think I'm going to go to Banana Republic. He's kind of like a normal guy. And then maybe I'll stop at like J. Crew, and they'll either be like, great, or they'll be like, no, like a little like more high end. Like, let's go to Hugo Boss. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
So for me, it's that kind of stuff. We don't use like inspiration images a ton. Like rarely they'll be like, this is the vibe. But like just a lot of like references to people or things that we both know. And once you get to know someone better, you understand like each other's references better. And sometimes you don't, and things don't gel, and that's totally fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Do you feel like you have relationships in specific stores? Like they know where you come in?
Yeah. All the PAs make fun of me because they're like, why do you know so much about the... I'm like, well, it took forever because like Carol's getting divorced and it's this whole thing. And like, they're like, why do you know this? I'm like, I don't know. They just told me. But then that really comes in handy. Like I have my girl at Nordstrom, I'll text her and I'll be like, I need a tuxedo shirt and a 1734, like under $600. And she'll send me like 4 pictures in 10 minutes and be like, one of these. And I'm like, yes, a PA will be here to grab that one. And
Amazing.
yeah, so if you're in a pinch, that really helps.
Yeah.
And also, I try to be honest.
It's probably win-win because she works on commission. Right?
Yeah, so like it can be tough because, you know, you'll buy about twice as much as you need, maybe sometimes 3 times as much as you need in order to have options for the fittings. So like I try to be super honest. Like it's pretty obvious what I'm doing. Like I'm not, like, you know, if I go and I'm buying like 7 men's suits, like it's not for me.
Yeah.
So usually they'll know, but I try to be honest and like, if it's coming back, this is when, whatever. So my friend at Nordstrom, she was like, oh, the benefits like far outweigh the risks in this relationship.
Yeah.
Like, it's fine. Because, you know, I'll spend $15,000 with her and we'll keep 6 of it.
Yeah.
And she's like, great, fine.
Yeah.
Like,
So 6 she wouldn't have.
yeah, she's like, perfect, I love it.
And
So,
actually, that's a note to any of you working out in retail. If you find yourself meeting a stylist or a shopper, latch on to them, get their personal phone number.
yes. Oh, yeah. It's great. I have so many people will just like text and be able to have that relationship. Yeah, it's great. And it takes you out of like, you can get like a little bit lonely, not to be like sad, but like you're just like walking around kind of alone all day. So it's kind of nice sometimes. We're like, oh, there's this person
Who I know.
Yes.
That was actually my next question is like, how big is your typical team and how many people are you usually working with?
So on a big show like Gossip Girl, we had 4 PAs, a coordinator, me, 2 assistant costume designers who would swap off episodes, and then we had a specific background assistant costume designer. And then the designer, then the tailor, and then we have a whole other wardrobe team, which is like a different union, whole
Can you
different
explain
thing.
actually the difference between wardrobe and
Yeah,
costume design?
costumes, the costume union, which is USA 829, it's the union, is like for creative stuff. So you'd be coordinator, shopper, assistant costume designer, and designer. So it's picking the things out. You have this creative say, and the wardrobe union is called USA 764. I know, it's fascinating. But that's very much, that's like being on set. So you're on set, you're tracking continuity, which is a huge part of things. So like once I go and I establish this look, I'm like, here's the look. He has 3 buttons undone. He has like 2 bracelets on this hand, 1 on this hand, and these specific socks. So once that's gone to camera and it's been approved and I'm like, great, it's there, it's the wardrobe team's responsibility to keep that going. So we'll film.
And keep the outfits.
Keep it exactly,
Preserved
because you'll do a scene where someone walks out of a door and then you'll shoot them like coming out of it 2 weeks later. So it has to look just exactly the same.
Yeah.
So those people do that, which is like so tedious. For me, I'm like worst nightmare.
Yeah.
But and then they're on set with the actors, making sure that all of that stuff's taken care of and getting them dressed in the morning, all of that. Yeah.
That's great.
So yeah, typically a typical team, just costume team, like for a show like Gossip Girl would be like close to like 12, and then the wardrobe team probably about the same.
Okay.
And then on a smaller movie like that Netflix movie I did, on my team there were 4 of us.
Oh, wow.
So
Yeah.
you're like doing everything. Yeah.
So, is there ever any crossover between wardrobe and costume design?
Oh yeah. So if you do a non-union show, like on this Netflix thing, like you're all doing both, because there are no rules. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter.
Yeah.
On a union set, you work super closely with them. Like they're 2 departments, but they're 1 department. We're all like we all work together. But it's very specific what is and isn't allowed union-wise. So like there are certain things that they will do on set that like I am not allowed to be doing on a union set. And same with them. Like they should not be like picking out outfits, like anything like that. So it's very like it's very much
You stay in your lane.
this, yeah, but also like it is like a collaboration and everyone gets along and like has a great time. But yeah, it's definitely like you know what you're supposed to, like, especially once you get to like that level, like everyone knows what they're supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
and they should, yeah.
But so if you are sitting out here and you want to break into the industry, would it be hurtful or a bad thing to take a wardrobing job to kick off, or should you try to stay in the lane you want to be in?
So that's a good question, and I have a lot of people ask me that, like a lot of PAs. So typically you'll start the same way. You'll start as a PA in the costume department because wardrobe doesn't really have like a PA.
Okay.
But like when I coordinated, since I was the closest with the PAs, I'd always be like, okay, what is your like what do you want to be doing? And if they were like wardrobe, I would try to introduce them to the supervisor and be like, this is them. Like, do you like maybe they can shadow you on set someday? Or if it's like I want to go the design route, I'd be like, okay, like I'm gonna be out next week. Maybe let's have you cover for me and like see how that goes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And teach them. And like now that I'm shopping with the PAs too, I'll be like, do you want to come in with me? Like if you want to be wardrobe and you don't care about this, like totally fine. Just like not offended. Like let me know. Some people do. It's I hesitate to say easier, but potentially easier to move from a PA to like a costumer than a coordinator, just because there's more availability. And a lot of PAs will do that even if they want to go the design route, because you start making like real money sooner, which is a huge part of it all. I don't know if you guys like talk about that here, but when you're a PA, you make minimum wage. I think the rate is like $2.10 for a 12-hour day. And once you're a costumer, you make a lot more than that, the wardrobe side. And they make more than I do. Like, they make so much money. And so a lot of PAs will be like, I've been PAing for 2 years, and I'm not making money. Like,
I need the paycheck.
I'm going to start doing wardrobe stuff.
Yeah.
Which I totally get and is very valid. I recommend, like, if you really want to go to the design route, like, just stick to that. Because it's so easy to just get lost, and then you're a costumer for 15 years when you actually want to design because you're making such good money and keep getting jobs. Which there's nothing wrong with that, obviously.
Right.
But,
Right.
But yeah,
But if you want to be creative and be like actually making your way up to designing a set.
yeah, and it's
a
possible
scene,
to do both. I know people who are in both unions who do both and that kind of stuff. So it's totally possible. It just depends on what your like goals and like motivations are, kind of.
Yeah.
None of which are better than any others.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's been your favorite project that you've worked on so far? If you have.
Fosse was really exciting for me because we got an Emmy nomination for outstanding costume, so that was like a really big one. It's like my first like non-PA job, and I was like, what's happening? That was huge. But honestly, as someone who was a teenager in 2007, like being on Gossip Girl was, don't laugh, you guys, okay? I'm very young and basically the same age now. So as someone who was a teenager back in the day when the original Gossip Girl was on,
I was watching in my 20s.
yeah. Oh my God, you guys old.
And I was
Okay.
really watched it, so
Yeah, so embarrassing. Yeah, so getting that job was definitely a really crazy moment for me. Like when they offered it to me, I was like, no, I'm from like a gross town in upstate New York. Like you don't want me to do this. Like, what are you talking about? So that was really exciting for me, and getting to work with somebody who I'd admired so much and who turned out to be like the most amazing person ever, because that's not always the case.
yeah. Yeah.
But so that was really exciting, and getting to learn from that and just like, yeah, be a part of something that's culturally so huge.
Yeah.
That's been one of the most rewarding things, I think.
Cool.
Yeah, and then my parents like finally recognized the show I work on. They did say, "Do we have to watch it?" And I was like, "All right."
You're like, not only do you have to watch it, you have to go back and watch the original from start
Yes.
to finish so you can understand my
Well, that's what my dad told me. He was like, "I didn't think people watched it. I thought it was just you and your friends." And I was like, "You know that it was big. Don't lie."
How many people in the room have watched the original Gossip Girl? Yeah. Everyone still watches
God.
it. Everyone talks about it in my classes. And then how many watch the second? Right. Okay. Well, now you have to watch it. It's your homework. Sorry.
So fun.
No. But that's great. It's,
Yeah, so definitely, I think
I
that
think
for me
it's
is
actually
big.
probably more like millennials that are watching it, though.
Yeah,
I guess.
probably, yeah.
Like everyone's wanting to relive.
Yeah, I'm a cusper, so I wouldn't get it, but no. Yeah, for sure.
That's so funny. Have you ever worked in a different city?
Yeah, I did a job in the Hamptons. It was the summer before COVID, so 2019. I was an assistant costume designer on this indie movie. We just call them, really technical term, we call them away jobs.
Away jobs.
Yes. It's like deranged summer camp, kind of, like, because you guys all kind of like live together. Everyone's away from home. You're just hanging out, and like, so it gets like a little bit ridiculous. Like it doesn't feel like you are working really hard, but it also doesn't feel like you are.
Yeah.
So I did a job there. It was about 4 weeks. So yeah, they just put me and the costume team up in an Airbnb, and we would just hang out. Like the pay will be different depending on where it is, and sometimes like if it's a union job, the union stuff is different. Like if I were to go do a union job in LA, that's actually a different union.
Oh.
Yeah, so that gets a little bit more complicated.
Okay.
But this was a non-union job in New York, but they, like if you're a PA on one of those jobs, they only have to pay you the minimum wage for that city or state, so it might be less.
Yeah.
And they have to give you what's called a per diem, which is like an extra amount of money per day that just acknowledges like you are not living in your home. So like you're probably like ordering dinner and like getting a lot of Ubers and like doing just expenses you wouldn't have if you had all your stuff at home, kind of. Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. They're fun, but definitely after 4 weeks, you're like, I'm ready to go back. Yeah.
Who do you feel is the most interesting person you've met for work?
Oh my God. I have no idea. I don't know. I feel like if you'd asked me this when I was like 25, I'd be like, yes, all these people. But you sort of get like desensitized to a lot of it. Like not in like a whatever, but you're just kind of like, okay, like I'm just at work.
Yeah.
Like people will ask me like about celebrities at work. I'm like, oh, they're just fine. Like they're just people. Probably I won't say who it was. I did meet this like multiple Oscar winning costume designer a few years ago, and that was like very exciting for me.
Cool.
Like I get more excited about the designers that I get to meet and work for than like the actual like actors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's good. You get a lot out of them.
Yeah.
Wondering if you could share with us a time that you made a mistake.
I've never made a mistake, so that's really hard for me to say. But yeah, totally. So Let me think of a.
Actually, I'm going to ask this as the class asked.
Oh, great.
Question is
Great.
what did your biggest failure teach you?
Again, no failures.
Which is a much more insightful way to answer the question. But.
Yeah. What did it teach me? I can think of like all the times where like, especially as a PA, you mess up. Like when I worked on elementary, someone brought a bunch of clothes back from the truck and they were like, put these away. And I'm like, great. So I did and organized them all into the stock. And then it turns out half of them were like Lucy Lou's personals that she like wanted something from. And I was like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. So it's like a lot of things as a PA where you're like, this is the end of the world. And then I think the biggest lesson is like, it's not the end of the world. And like, just like being honest when you mess up, like especially as a coordinator, I had PAs who, if they messed up, would be like, listen. Like I had a PA who was like, listen, I put diesel in the car and now it's broken. And I'm like, great, that sucks, but like we can work on this now.
Yeah.
And then like, well, we can fix it because I know it's a problem. But then I'll have another PA who like just won't tell me anytime anything goes wrong. And then by the time they tell me, it's like spiraled so out of control that there's nothing we can do. And I'm like, I'm going to be so much more mad if like this whole thing, yeah, if like if you had just come to me right away, I would have been like annoying, but okay, fine, we'll fix it together. Yeah. So yeah, just being really honest about when you mess up and like definitely not blaming other people. Like that's just should go without saying, but yeah, just taking responsibility when you mess up and like taking steps to fix it. Like my thing now is to be like, okay, oh, I forgot to buy shoes for that guy playing the lawyer. Shit, okay, oh my God, sorry. I know. Like I know that DSW opens at 8 a.m., so I'm just like gonna text the designer, be like, hey, really sorry, I forgot to buy shoes for this guy. Do we have any in stock that we think will work? If not, I'm gonna start my day at DSW and like get the shoes and bring them to you in the morning. Yeah. So just having this be like, having it planned out, like I made this mistake, but I'm gonna fix it. Yeah. And here's how that's gonna happen. Yeah. Is what I would, that's the advice I would give, I think. Yeah.
That's good. And know those stores that open at 8 a.m., I guess.
Yeah, Burlington Coat Factory, you guys. If you've never been at a Burlington Coat Factory in Queens at 8 a.m., highly recommend. Yeah. I cried in one once at 8 a.m. It was really cool. It was a good day for me. Yeah, so it's all glamour, definitely.
That's awesome. Well, I guess that leads to my next question. Why are you passionate about what you do? It's funny because like when I worked for Lori, again, amazing experience and something I'm very happy I got to do. And I would come home and I just didn't really feel like fulfilled, kind of. Like you'd be like, I went to work, but like at what cost? Yeah. So I think for this, part of it is getting to see the final product, like getting to go on set and see this thing that you shopped for or see people, happy about it. Like we have a lot of like fan accounts who will post any like paparazzi photo like of the kids in their costumes and then immediately tag everything, which is so funny to me. Like they'll tag the earrings. I'm like, I bought those and I don't remember what they are. So that's wild. But yeah, I'm like, congrats on that. But yeah, so seeing other people like be happy about something you create or something like that. I think for me that's really exciting and feeling like you're good at something. Mm-hmm. Like, just going, like now for me, I can go out with a shopping list and I'm like, no, yeah, I'm gonna kill this. Like, what do you mean? Like, so I think that being able to have the confidence and like knowing that like I'm good at this and like, but still being like, still knowing there's room to learn so much more. Yeah.
Always, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. What do you feel like are important qualities for someone in this field?
Patience, definitely, because moving up to where I am, I'm incredibly lucky in that I've only been in costumes for 5 years and I'm at a place that is not super common like for that to happen as quickly. And so I'm very lucky about that. But being patient but also standing up for yourself is really important. That's something that I've been trying to get better at. But it's so easy when you're a PA to like just quietly stay for 2 extra hours to get work done and like just not get paid for it and stuff. And like for me as a coordinator, like annoyingly so, I'd be like a PA, I'd been like, you've been here for 12, like get out. And they were like, no, I'm gonna help. I'm like, no, you're not. Like if anyone's going to be exploited, it's me.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's important. Also, just, I don't know, like try to not like get jaded, which is much easier said than done. But yeah, trying to like every once in a while, if I'm feeling like this day sucks and like, oh, this is so, why am I doing this? I'll just be like, okay, like if my 15-year-old self knew what I was doing right now, she'd lose her mind.
Yeah.
So just like being like, okay, I know that I'm grateful for this and I love what I do, and just sort of like having the ability to be like, just calm down.
Yeah.
Like it's fine and everything's fine. Yeah.
That's good advice. So I mentioned already our first capstone question from the class. There's a couple others that we all came up with. So in a field of people who all want to be unique in hiring, what really catches your eye and sets someone apart? And I don't know that you're hire, but necessarily like pulling someone along.
Yeah. So as a coordinator, I would hire most of the PAs.
Okay, cool.
This is going to sound like the most, I was with my friend when you emailed me the questions, and I was like, should I say this? Because it sounds so petty. But if somebody sends me, like if we have some like Google groups that will be like, hey, I need a PA for this season or for these next few days, and you'll get like 15 resumes in 20 minutes. If you send me a resume and it's not in PDF form, if I have to like open like a Google link, I'm just not doing it. Like I just won't. Like multiple people, I've been like, I'm not.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Like if like 14 other people sent me PDF things and I don't have to like ask for permission and I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah.
And it's not like a laziness thing. For me, it's like, one, it's like, if you are like responsible in doing that, you should just do that. Mm-hmm. And two, it's like, I don't have the time and I have all these other applicants that are like here and like have their stuff. So to me, that's really important.
It's an easy way to weed through the pile.
Yeah, you're just like, no. Yeah, that kind of stuff. A lot of this is about, and which maybe is not helpful, is kind of about how well you like vibe with the team. So like when I got Fosse Verdon, I'd only been a PA for 7 months, and they hired me to coordinate that show, and it was a massive show. And when they hired me, I was kind of like, I don't think you want to do that. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. And they were just like, we haven't liked anyone else, and we just like feel this is like a good thing. So kind of, yeah, going off that, being like, okay, we're going to be spending 12 hours a day together for 8 months. It has to be someone that that we can get along with. Yeah, and that we feel like is going to work well together. Yeah, just that kind of stuff. Weeding out, like, we interviewed a few PAs, and one of them was just like, yeah, I'm not passionate about costumes. And I was like, why are you here? Just get out. Like, which was, I was like, I mean, I love the honesty, but what is going on? Yeah, she was like, yeah, I just don't really care about this. And I was like, okay, you could have, all right. So why did you even interview? But so that, like, if you just really need a job and you're not passionate, just like lie about it. I mean, don't, but you know, like, don't go into an interview that you actually want to get and be like, I don't really care.
I'm better than that.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, like it's, again, it's so easy, and that was hard for me when I graduated from FIT, like, and was working for Lori, because, you know, you graduate and you're like, I have all this knowledge and I could do this boss's job right now with this knowledge I have. But like, again, that's not what they want from you. They want you to like make copies and like make coffee and things like that, and like just not showing that you're annoyed about those things. Like, I would just go home and call my mom every night, like, this is so annoying. But like at work, I'd be like, yes, I would love to do that for you. And like, so just being like a good sport, and yeah, that someone and I'll have people in interviews be like, I know that, you know, I'm like a little bit older, but I want you to know, like, I'm fine with doing whatever. Like, I'll take out the trash and I'll do this and I'll blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that's a great like attitude to have. Like,
yeah,
like I will do what needs to be done for the team. And I, like, even myself too, like, usually like the PAs will carry shopping in. They'll always be like, don't worry. I'm like, you guys, I have 2 perfectly good arms. Like, I will help you carry. Like, it's not like, no.
Yeah.
Like that kind of stuff. Just always doing what's best for the team, and having that kind of attitude is really important.
Yeah.
Without letting yourself get exploited or taken advantage of, which again, tough line to toe, especially when you're starting out, but definitely don't, like, especially even if you guys aren't going into film or something, you know, as someone who worked in fashion, so easy to happen.
Yeah.
And I don't know if internships are different now. Again, back in my day, they weren't paid and there was sort of no like regulations. It was just insane. So it's really hard, but like it's that hard line to toe of like knowing like I deserve basic human decency, but I also need to acknowledge that I do have to pay my dues. So it's a hard thing to balance.
I mean, I think that's good advice, and I think in the example of like your Lori entry-level job, you said the right things, did the right things, and you probably left in good graces.
Yes.
Even if you weren't happy with the job, you put up a good front and you left as fast as you could find another opportunity to get out, which is fine. And
I was
totally
great
normal,
at that job,
But you left yourself in good standing, which means that she went on to speak good things about you, and you never know when that's going to come back around.
Exactly. It's really important to, as much as you can. And there are some people, like, unfortunately, that you're going to work with that it doesn't go well. And, like, it is what it is. Like, it's unfortunately not so different from, like, school. Like, you'll do a group project, and you're like, I hate that girl. And, like, you'll have someone on a team where you're just like, oh, I don't really vibe with this person, but we have to, because we're adults and it's fine. So just being mature about all that kind of stuff is really important too. It's hard because people are annoying, but
Okay, so my last question, I'm going to turn it over to the audience for questions, but if you had a chance to talk to yourself as a young graduate, what advice would you give yourself?
That's a good one. I know I have these in advance. I don't know why I'm acting like this is the first time I'm hearing this. I think sort of what I was saying, like to stand up for yourself. And one thing I will say that is not to get all like 2015, like lean in on you, but if you are like not a cis man.
Is that how old that book is?
It's gross, right? Like ask for so much more money than you think you should be asking for, because I asked for like nothing when I took that job at Lori's, because I was like, they don't need me, I'm just whatever. Like, ask for like a living wage, you guys. And also like share with the people around you like what you're making. Like especially in this industry, it's so varied, like how much people make. Like once you become a shopper and above, it's pretty standard, like there's a union rate, but coordinators have to negotiate themselves. And we have a giant spreadsheet that every single show, it says exactly how much this coordinator is making, what benefits they're getting, all this kind of stuff, what hours they're working. So like when I was a coordinator, I got offered a Hulu show and they're like, we can only pay you this amount. And I was like, well, Abby, who's doing this show, is getting paid $500 more a week than that. So you're lying to me. And you can go and be like, if that's all you can offer, like I cannot accept this job, but like, here's this like power of negotiating. So ask for, or they'll just do it and I'll be like, no, I'm not going to do that job for that money. Which happens when you're a coordinator. And it's, again, something that once you do it more, you have more freedom to say no to those things, which I never, like, but when I say this, like, never shame anybody for taking a job that is lower than something you would have taken or lower than something like we should be taking, because like you don't know people's situations. Like it's not anyone's fault that they're being underpaid. But definitely advocate for yourself. And like if employers are being weird about money, like if you're in an interview and you're like, how much does this typically make? And they're like, whoa. It's like, that's a really bad sign. Definitely, because I know money is like a weird thing to talk about, but just like don't let people mess with your money. Definitely, like ask for a lot. Yeah.
Ask for the world.
Yes.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Who has questions in the audience? Everyone. Let's start down here.
So, my question is, what do you think is like the most important attribute to have as like someone in the costume industry, knowing that you're going to have sometimes your like long work days and kind of like a lot of just demands in general? Like, what do you think? The most important attribute for someone in the costume industry.
Comfortable shoes. Everyone makes fun of me because I always wear Crocs. And they're like, this is disgusting. I'm like, I know, but I'm comfortable. Comfortable shoes. But also, it's something that if you're not passionate about it, you will be so unhappy just because of the hours and the demands on you. So I think just, yeah, make sure it's something that you're really passionate about and something that's worth it to you, because if it's not, you'll just be miserable. Like, I love my job and I would not trade it for anything. And I'm like, I'll work 16 hours a day for 8 months on this job, like, great. But if it was for a job that I wasn't passionate about, I would be like, I hate everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's my answer.
I was wondering, was costume design a path you always imagined for yourself, or was it a bit unexpected, and what kind of ignited that passion for you?
It's a good question. When I came to school here, I wanted to be a stylist, like everybody. And then I interned for a freelance stylist when I was 19. I was like, no. I was like, I don't like this. It's so stressful. Just like not what I wanted. And I guess I'd done like a little bit of acting in high school. And I was like, I always, I guess, enjoyed that kind of stuff. So my roommate's cousin was a costume shopper for elementary and was like, you guys should meet and have lunch. And we did. And then she offered me an internship. So it was sort of just like me reassessing, like, okay, I don't want to be a stylist, but I like this general direction. Like, I still want to be in fashion. I still want to do this. What do I think might be cool? And then talking to somebody in that and realizing, like, oh yeah, this is what I like.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hannah.
How much do you wish that you would have asked for as like a living wage?
When I was younger. So when I worked for Lori, I'll just say what I was making. I don't care. This was like 8 years ago. When I worked for Lori, I wasn't expecting them to like ask me, but they'd call me one day and they're like, what do you need to make? And I was like, I don't know, 30K. And they were like, okay. So it was like so little money. Like literally every 2 weeks I would get a check for $800 and my apartment was like $1,100. So I also like worked at a boutique on the weekends.
Oh my gosh.
And oh my God, nightmare. And, but then I was like, they don't pay me enough. And I was like, you didn't ask for enough money. Like I think if I'd been like 50, they would have been like, whatever, fine. So, and it's really, really hard to renegotiate once you're already in a position. Like getting there and being like, oh, this is so much work, like more work than I thought it was going to be. This is whatever. It's like, they're like, no, we agreed on this. So
Yeah.
I think really sitting down and like actually, I hadn't done any math or like thought about taxes or anything. Like, so I think really sitting down and looking at like, what are my expenses? How much am I going to need to make like after taxes in order to be able to live? And not, it's like, I know the whole New York thing. It's like, oh, scraping by. Like that doesn't have to, if that doesn't have to be your life, don't make it your life.
Yeah.
But if it is, that's also totally great and valid. And I've been there and all of my friends have been there. And it's hard, but it's like, you look back, you're like, oh, that's like romantic, like Chelsea Hotel style. And you're like, no, I was like eating frozen dinner. Like I was not, like, it wasn't romantic at the time. But yeah.
And I mean, I know usually from a costume design standpoint, you guys have an overall budget and everything, it's a line item on the budget. So I don't know how much flexibility that any given design team has. There's probably some level of flexibility. I will say, for someone who's managed like a sales team and a design team, I have an overall budget. And if you push back on me and you want, 5% more than I've offered you, chances are I can find that 5%, especially for an entry-level job. So, and I would say I don't think I have ever reneged an offer completely because someone pushed back on me. I would maybe say, I can't, that's not going to happen. But pushback is kind of expected. A little pushback is kind of expected. You shouldn't go crazy.
Yeah.
Like, what would you ask for
At entry level? I don't know. I feel like I'm a little out of the game on entry level, but
same.
And it depends on the role too, like and the company
And again, it's like if it's a really small,
level.
Don't say that. Whatever you do,
But probably somewhere
whatever you do.
closer to 50.
Yeah, I
There's
would
been
think
inflation
so.
This year, and I don't know, but
So much inflation, totally. But no, and it's some jobs like for like a PA position, that's the rate, and that is the rate. And same for like my position, like going into this new union show, like it's the union standard rate. That's what it is. But for coordinators, there's not a fixed rate, so you do get to negotiate. And like when you're doing that, don't be afraid to like talk yourself up. Like that's what I did my last ever coordinating job. I was just like, I never want to coordinate again, but I'm going to do you this favor, and I'm going to take this job, but you need to pay me this amount because here's why, and here's why it's actually going to cost you less money if you just pay me and I do this job, because I was just like, I'm not going to do it for this other number, and like it's going to cost less because like I get returns out faster, and like historically when I do a show, like it's under budget because I make sure everything's like, so just having this stuff, having a reason why. Because if they're just like, well, why do you deserve more money? And you're like, I want it. They're like, no.
Yeah.
So yeah, and like you said, it's typically, if it's an offer, like a normal offer, there's room to negotiate, and it's expected. And if it is a company who's going to be like, how dare you? Like, you don't want to work for
that's
that
a good point.
company.
It's a really good point.
And it's so hard to see that, especially as someone who's starting off. Like, for me, I was like, I'll take any job. But it's definitely in the long run, like, important to be like, oh, this company is not going to take care of this very basic thing that they can't afford. Like, if you're offered 40,000 and you're like, I want 45, and they're like, bye. It's like, okay, no,
Yeah.
like, that's crazy.
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah.
And I will say also, you don't want to get too far out ahead of your skis
Yeah.
either. Like if you push too far, and this is kind of speaking for more like the industry.
Yeah.
If you push too far, you actually put like kind of a target on your back because you have to prove your worth at that price point. And you know, if things go bad at the company, like they're like, well, I'm overpaying this person, so I should, you know.
Yeah.
whatever. So,
Like,
I
be
mean,
reasonable.
You want to be reasonable about it.
Don't be like insane, but like, or if that works for you, like do it. But no, I think, yeah, that's important. And also like, for me, and I know people, you might have differing views on this, especially with how the world is now, I think it's so important to be open about how much you're making. And like, I had a friend who was working for a camera company, and he was like, I found out I had to help payroll with something, and I think all the women in my position are making less money than me. And I was like, well, what are you going to do about it? And he was like, nothing. I was like, okay, yes, you are. Like,
Yeah.
And I was like, you absolutely are.
Still the wrong person.
Yeah, and I was like, no. Like, I was like, talk to those women. Like, I'm like, no, it's now your responsibility. Sorry, but yeah, that kind of stuff. Knowing, and like, if a coworker in the same position as you, if you find out they're making $20,000 more a year than you, do not be mad at them. Like, you getting more money is not taking money from somebody else, and that's something that's really important. And that's like, if you're making more money than someone, don't like, oh, I don't want to talk about it. Like, we're not each other's competition as much as it seems like we are. It's so important to realize like there's room for all of us, and someone making more than you does not, or you making more than someone, like, it doesn't make you better than them. It doesn't make them better than you. It's like everybody should be interested in sharing that information, so collectively we can all have a better, easier time. If that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think you definitely made me more interested in potentially going into costume.
Oh, cool.
I have two questions.
Yeah.
So the first one is, what's an advice that you would give us to start today to kickstart like being in your work field? And then second, can you talk a little more about what the unit is?
Yeah. So my first advice is email me your resume. And when I say that, like, I always, like, I met this girl at Nordstrom recently who is a NYU costume design student, and she was like, can I have your email? And I was like, yes. And she was like, I'm really going to email you. And I told her, I was like, if somebody like whose career you're interested in, or like who you think can help you, gives you their contact information, reach out. Like, I would not give it to someone if I didn't want them reaching out to me. Like, I just wouldn't do that. So don't be shy to like ask for that. The first thing is like, a lot of people will start PAing while they're in school. They'll do like a day a week, or they'll get a couple days, because we always need like additional hands. So that's, unfortunately, we don't really do internships in this industry anymore. I think just like internship rules are really specific now. I'm not really sure.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, that doesn't really seem to be a thing anymore.
Well, because I think you either have to be paid or you have to get school credit.
Yeah.
One of the two.
And then it
School
gets,
credit's probably challenging for you guys to pull off.
yeah, and it gets hard in this industry because just like everything's so insane. It's just like, it's tough to like, to really, it's tough for someone to be able to like teach you all day, and like, which like happy to teach, happy to help like newer people. But if it's like, if it's too much, it can be difficult for someone.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I would recommend emailing me, and then like being willing to like, if a PA day opens up on a show, just like, I'll jump in and I'll do that for a day. And like, just learning that I think is really important because again, that just gets your name out there. And then before you know it, you're just getting a million texts to do PA jobs. That's really how it works. And then the union, yeah, it's, so most departments in film, once you move past a PA, you will join a union, which is great. They protect you from like crazy hours. They make sure that like if you do work 18 hours a day, which will happen, you get paid for it. They make sure that you are getting either breaks for lunch or more likely you're getting what we call meal penalties. So you're getting paid because you didn't get to break for lunch. Things like that you have access to bathrooms on set, things like all that stuff. If someone is harassing you or something bad is going on the set, that's someone you can reach out to. Like you can reach out and be like, hey, I think this is like a kind of unsafe environment. Can you come check this out? And they'll come and just be like, surprise visit, no one called me. So having that, and then also the health insurance thing is like really great because I know you guys are young, but once you can't be, if you're not on your parents' health insurance, it can be really difficult. So if you work a certain amount of union hours a year, your health insurance is covered. Yeah, and they do like retirement stuff. It's not cheap being in a union. So once you get in, like when I got in as a coordinator, I think I had to pay them like $2,000, which like I didn't have. I was like a PA. I was like, okay, I don't know. But you do that, and then they take like a certain percentage out of your paycheck, and then you also have to pay dues every couple months. But it's definitely worth it because the jobs you get are much higher paying, and you have all these protections that you wouldn't normally have.
What are some of the biggest challenges you had to go through coming into the industry so young?
Yeah. I think I can speak on this from like the last movie that I did, this Netflix movie. It was a fairly young crew, but I was the head of the department. I was designing, and having to stand up for yourself in a room of 50-year-old male producers can be difficult when you're like, no, you hired me to do this because I'm an expert in this, and here's why this is right. And it's hard. It can be hard to be taken seriously, especially. And when I worked for Lori, I was 22, and I was in charge of like her entire global business. So it would be hard. Like you'd be emailing with someone a lot, and then you'd get to a meeting, and they'd be like, "You're the girl who's in charge of this." And I was like, "I know, crazy, right?" But so that's difficult, and you know how much of that is a gender versus age thing. Like who's to say? They both do affect it. Yeah, for sure. So I think that's been a challenge, and unfortunately, I experienced more like Me Too-y behavior in fashion than in film, actually. But that is that's unfortunately something that is very much a problem. And you know, being so young, it like at the times, it can be really hard. Like you'll be in a meeting and someone will just make a comment, and you're just like, did this really just happen? Mm-hmm. So my favorite thing now, if someone says something like weird to me, I'll just be like, I'm sorry, can you explain? That's like, and then they just freak out. Like one of the producers said something weird to me on this, and I was like, I'm sorry, can you just like walk me through that? And they just like run away. So
It's very satisfying.
yeah, it is. So, oh my God, it's so great. Like so great. Yeah. So I think just having that confidence, and also having someone that you trust, like hopefully the people who are above you are people that you can trust and that will help you out in any situation like this. Like I really, since I was in charge of like this whole team of, I think it's all young women on this movie, I was very much like, if anyone says anything to you that you don't like you come to me, and like I will talk to them, like we'll make this happen. And just having someone that you can trust to talk to you about that and to help you out, because it can be frustrating. Yeah, definitely. Not going to sugarcoat that. It's frustrating.
You want to go here first?
So I feel like in sort of the stress on generating original content, original material, and original art. Hearing about the work you do as a PA and a shopper, do you feel like the costume industry supports that creative outlet? And do you feel like you're still doing original design work? Is it just the shopping style work? How long before you get to do that original work? I don't know if you
Yeah.
speak to that kind of, I'm just afraid of, and that's what I'm speaking of, is fear of getting into an industry and then realizing I'm not doing the thing that I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. So for this, it is when you're a PA and a coordinator, you're not doing any kind of design at all, which I think is common for a lot of like entry level stuff. So when you start shopping is when you really first get to start to be creative. But like I said, yeah, like it's usually the designer will be like, this is like the vibe we have, which I love doing because I get to interpret people's other stuff. It can be hard when they're like, I want like a tie-dye sweater, and you're like, there isn't one in all of New York, I swear. And you're just like, I've been everywhere, it's not happening. So that can be difficult, but it's about a time thing. So like once you get to assistant costume designer and designer, then you get to have that freedom. But again, it's not totally freedom. Like you were saying, like maybe they're just like, I don't like this pink sweater. And like you will get a director or producer sometimes who's like, no, I just don't like that. And you're like, oh, right. Like, but you'll do meetings with them beforehand and show them mood boards and discuss with them like what they want. So it's like any kind of design where it's such a collaboration. And unless you have like your own company and you're allowed to do whatever you want, there are like concessions you have to make and people you have to collaborate with. I think that's fun. But yeah, it takes about, typically you PA for 2 or 3 years, coordinate 2 or 3 years, and then shop for a couple and start doing that. So it really just depends. But you do, once you're in the industry longer, you do get creative freedom. Just when you first start, definitely not. But don't let that like deter you, for sure, because it's worth it. Yeah.
Did you have a backup plan?
Backup plan?
When you first started, yeah. When you first started getting into the industry, did you have like a backup plan?
No, because I'm stupid. I didn't. I was thinking about that recently, and I was like, who just let me do that? Yeah, no. So, and my parents never asked. I feel like if I'd been trying for like a couple years and then hadn't, they would have been like, all right, let's. No, I did not. I also just want to make it super clear, like my family was not able to help me, like financially or contacts wise. So, because I know, like I said, you'll hear speakers and then you're just like, oh, your family paid for you to live, which if it is happening to you, that's amazing. I love that for you, but was not the case for me. So it is a little bit scary. Like definitely when I left fashion and was like, I'm going to start PAing, I was like, what am I doing? But no, I did not have a backup plan. No.
All's well that ends well.
Yes, I mean, I don't know if do you recommend backup plans?
I mean, I can't say I ever had a backup plan.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, just
No, it's
wing
like
it. Just go for
Yeah,
it.
like you got, I don't know. But I feel like maybe your path was riskier than mine. I went for fashion and I stayed in fashion. So,
Yeah, I think I was just like, I'm going to try this. And then if it doesn't work out,
I think the backup plan is always networking and always keeping your ears open and never, I mean, even still now, I start talking to someone, I'm like, ooh, I like that company. I'm like, my like interest is piqued to learn more about it because you just never know. Like they may have an opportunity that just suits me and that sort of thing. And that would be my biggest piece of advice for backup plan, no matter what field you end up going into.
Yeah. And like when I first started PAing too, like I wasn't having like super like I was lucky I got on elementary, which is like a 7-month job. But after that, I didn't have anything for like 2 months, and I'd worked at this boutique in college. So I texted her, I was like, can I work there again for a few months? She was like, okay. So I think that's also like knowing when like, I hate this word and I'm so sorry I'm about to use this, but sometimes you have to like hustle. Like I'm really sorry to say that, but like, you know what I mean? Not to get like girl boss on you, but like it is sometimes it's like not the most fun, and you have to like, you do have like capitalism is everywhere and you have to like pay your rent and everything. So you will have to like you'll do that. You'll find like little side jobs, stuff like that. But yeah, just yeah, keep listening to that. And like anytime we'd have like an additional PA or an additional shopper on when I was a PA, I'd be like, I'm done on this in July, and just so you know, like I'm available. So like getting to know people and getting everybody's contact, and when you're not working, just reaching out and being like, hi, I'm available. And that goes so far. Like so many times a PA would text me when I was coordinating, like, just so you know, I'm available. I'd be like, thank God I need somebody.
Yeah.
So yeah, just not being shy to like reach out to people.
And not that this is a paid job, but I actually was connected to you because of a job on
Christine,
Blacklist.
yeah.
Someone that you worked with on Blacklist obviously thought highly enough of you to recommend you to me. So
Yeah.
it all kind of.
I'm not getting paid for this.
No. Unfortunately, no.
Okay, bye, you guys.
It's not a union job.
I'm heading out.
In the back.
You might slowly be answering this question, and it might be silly, but in terms of experience with being a PA, let's say you don't have any, but I'm interested in, maybe that whole realm of what that is.
Mhm.
I guess, like, how would you start into that? Like, I don't know. I guess my question is, how would you kind of walk into it if you've never done it, but you're in fashion and you're interested in design?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. So, again, apply, like if you are on like one of our costume Google groups, which if anyone wants to be added, I can add you guys to it, because they post like when anyone needs assistance, there's like stylist assistants and PAs and stuff. Always like, if there's a PA job and you can do it those days, send your resume. Don't be like, I know there's a million better people. You can just be like, hey, I don't really have a ton of experience in this yet, but like I have this, this, and this that you're looking for.
My resume's a PDF.
Your resume, yeah. It's like, it's a Google, like, no.
And my deal breaker was one page. I don't know if you have the same.
Oh, yeah. I usually, like, I'll look, but I'm just like,
If
okay.
it's more than one page, I will not actually interview the person.
Yeah. Also, I have multiple resumes. So I have, like, if I'm doing, like, a lower budget thing that I'm designing and sending to people, I have, like, a different one than if I'm applying, like, if someone wants my resume to see if I want to shop for them. You just, like, put stuff in different order, kind of, which, like, whether or not that's insane. But I know a lot of people who do that.
Yeah.
But yes, to answer your question, I think just, I've hired a lot of PAs who don't have any experience. Like, one was just a cashier at Mood Fabrics and like asked me what I was doing one day, and I told her, and she's like, that sounds fun. I was like, email me. And then she worked on the Blacklist for 2 seasons.
Wow.
And she'd never done it before, and I just told the girl, I was like, I don't know, she seems sane, and she's held on to her job at Mood for a year, so I guess she can do that.
Yeah.
So that's all I know about her. But yeah, just being open about that, but not being like, it's okay if you're just being like, I know that I don't have this, but here's, like, I'm really interested in learning. And yeah, like, you never know. And I would say that generally, like, apply for jobs that you think you might not be super qualified for. Like, if it's like 6 years of experience and you have 4, like, okay, just apply.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like actually a hard and fast rule. Yeah, and I've definitely hired people that were like maybe less qualified, like on paper, like after the interview. So yeah, just being willing to like to do that and to try it. And once you do it for one day, it, like, literally gets so much easier to get jobs. Yeah. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
When hiring PAs, what do you look for in a resume? Like who stands out?
Yeah. So I mean, typically, like, if we're hiring someone, like if I'm looking for someone to be a PA for like 3 days, because we need someone to do returns, that'll kind of, I'll just look at, like, I don't have time to like sit with this person, like, okay, this person's done this show, this show, this show, they know how to do return, like, great, I'm sure they're great. And like, if I see a show that like I know someone, I might text them and just be like, do you know this girl? Like, is she cool? So like that's the kind of thing. For a more long-term PA, it's a little bit more specific about who you're going to want, because again, you're going to be spending 12 hours a day with this person. They have to fit in well with the rest of the team. So basically, anyone like whose resume is readable, and because some are not, you guys. Even if they're PDFs, some are just like, and it's just like a lot of crazy stuff on it. So if your resume is readable and you have some kind of experience, usually I'll, like, for a longer term PA, I would reach out to most people if they seemed good. And also a lot of times, like, if I would get a resume where someone's been a PA for 6 years and then there's someone who's like, I've never done it, but I'm interested, I might be like a little bit more interested in this newer person to be like, okay, this is some, and like, I'm someone too, like, oh, they always make fun of me because I'm such like a sucker for it. Cause like I was given a chance when like no one knew me. So they're like, what random person did you pull off the street today? And I'm like, this girl, and she's great. And like, so I'm definitely like, this industry is for everyone, yeah.
Yeah.
So does that make sense? Okay.
Yeah. In the jeans. Sorry.
My question is along with the TA, and I know your experience is primarily with like costume and wardrobe. What would be your advice? I have two questions actually. What would be your advice to break into like PA but general production for a film? So like not wardrobe, but you want it to be general production.
Yeah.
And then my second question, my friend couldn't be here because she had to work, but she's a designer. She wanted to know, especially because with your experience in costume shopping, what is your best advice? Like, let's say you're an upcoming designer, like to catch the eye. Like, let's say you wanted your brand to be on Gossip Girl, for instance, or something like to catch the eye of the costume designer.
Yeah, those are good questions. The first one about being just like a general production PA, it's kind of like the same thing. You're more likely to find like a posting for that. Even like Indeed will sometimes do it. I think there's still like page programs at NBC, and production internships are more common than costume internships. But it's a similar thing, and a lot of people start in production, and then from there they'll be like, oh, I like locations, or I like art, and you can meet everybody. So yeah, like keeping your ear to the ground on that stuff. Like literally I used to just like Google like PA jobs, and that would kind of come up. It's my high tech reasoning. In terms of getting someone's attention, I mean, it really depends. Like some of it literally will just be like I've had a designer before just like send me a screenshot of like an Instagram ad and was like, do you know what this is? And we're like, no, let's find out. And so we'll see something and be interested in that. I mean, there's no harm in like emailing or DMing somebody and saying like, this is my collection. For something like that, the easiest way to get your stuff in the room is to say like, I will gift or like loan this if you're interested. If you ever need anything, like sending a lookbook, that kind of stuff is good. Especially in the new Gossip Girl, they're very interested in like new brands and like young people and that kind of stuff, which is really cool. But yeah, again, just like being proactive, just being like, I know this designer is doing this show and that's really cool, and I'm going to email them or text them DM them and just like see if this might be something they're interested in. Yeah, and a lot of it, like again, unfortunately, is like I'll see someone wearing something on Instagram and I'm like, that's good. Let's get that. Yeah.
Where is your effort from?
Yeah, what's this? Yeah, you're like searching, you're like, oh my gosh, very good. Yeah, like literally some bags that we got in for Gossip Girl. I just like, my friend was wearing one day and I was like, what's that? And like just got them in, yeah. So luck, but also like, you can like make some of your own luck, I think. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm always surprised by how many people say that they respond to their DMs. Like not even just in costume design, but a lot of designers that have shown up here. So you never know, just hitting someone up on Instagram.
Yeah, it's like don't be weird, but like also it shows initiative. Like me, like half the jobs I've gotten are just people being like, all right, sure, you're here. Like like when I was starting out, it was kind of that. So, and even if they don't respond or like if they're like maybe, like you don't know, like you know, if it's a swimsuit brand and you're like, these great swimsuits, the designer might be like, okay, and then 2 years later they're doing a show and they need like a suit. They're like, oh my God, that girl DM'd me. I think those might be good. So yeah, so also just not getting like discouraged, because especially with stuff like that, you'll get like way more no's than you will yeses, or way more things that won't pan out, but then something will.
Yeah. Any more questions out there? Yeah.
Yeah, is there anything that we should pay attention to when we sign a contract?
Yeah, very, very good. Definitely, they're really boring, but read them. Especially, and ask questions. Like if there's we're were a lot of like NDA clauses in Lori's contract, which were fine and I abide by. But like you can look at, and if you're like, I don't really understand what that means, like you won't sound stupid. Just especially like if it's like a first job, just be like, what does this mean? Especially if it like involves your pay and stuff. You're just like, definitely read that. Make sure everything is what you agreed to. Like I just had the hair and makeup artist on this Netflix movie is one of my best friends, and her first paycheck came and she was like, no, this is wrong because I was supposed to get this amount a day for my kit. And then she went and looked at her contract. She was like, oh my God, I accidentally signed it. And it said that amount for a week. I'm so stupid. So just like reading through everything, and because she was like, he verbally told me, and I was like, I bet he did. So like, just like reading through everything and not being scared to say like, hey, this is actually wrong. Or asking questions if something is confusing to you. Yeah, definitely don't be afraid to do that, because it's really important. And if someone's going to be annoying or weird about it, then like that's their own problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Sorry, quick question. I was wondering if you had a lawyer.
I do not have a personal lawyer. So that's actually like an interesting thing. So once you become like a larger like union costume designer, you will have an agent, and typically an LLC, because that'll make things easier for you tax wise. And then once you do that, the agent is really who will get you jobs. And so I don't have a personal lawyer. Most designers don't either. They'll just have that agent, and then sometimes a publicist, depending on like how front-facing that person is. But if you work for like a larger company, that company will have a lawyer. And if anything happens to you, or if there's any legal help you need that like involves the company, like I had a PA once who, it's not funny, he was totally fine, who like ran over a guy's foot or something. He was fine, but she ran over this guy's foot with the company car, and he was fine. But then he was like, oh, this is a TV show car? Like, oh my God, I'm dying. So she ended up he like sued her, but the production company like took care of everything, and because that was part of like the deal when they sign their stuff. That's like, if anything happens and it's like not your fault, they will take care of it. So you have people on all these places who in theory are there to protect you and help you out. Yeah.
Do you ever pull from like fashion houses themselves, or like?
Yeah. Yeah, we do a lot, especially on Gossip Girl. Like on a really fashion-heavy show like that, we have, like the costume shop is like the dream. So we will pull from a lot of them. We also do pulls from like actual stores. Like, so people will let us take stuff on memo. So we can just pull stuff and then we pay for what we keep and bring the rest back. But yeah, definitely. It's a little bit harder for TV because we have to hang on to everything that's been used and seen on screen until the episode airs or the movie comes out, or it's locked, we call it. So fully edited, it's ready, just in case there's ever a reshoot. So if you were loaning us a gown for a scene in Gossip Girl, we might say like, okay, but we need to hang on to it for 7 months, which is not ideal for some people. So there are times where we can like talk about like shortening things, but yeah, that tends to be the biggest issue with loaning stuff. Yeah.
Let's go with the last question here. So we're running out of
So
time.
do you feel like your role is more closely related to a buyer rather than a stylist? Like based on how you're saying like you guys loan from like fashion houses and like to me like I guess like a high position buyer like goes to fashion shows to see like what they want to pull for their like store or like that kind of thing. And also have you been invited to a show?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Definitely this is more of like a styling thing, especially because I know you were saying in your introduction that it's more specific to a character. So like you'll have to shop for a character who's like a schlubby, like weird guy. And like I remember coming in with some shoes for this character and showed Eric. He was like, those are disgusting, they're perfect. And you're like, yes. So it's not always about making someone look good. So it's more styling in that way where it's like, it's very specific to this person. And also, you know, then you get into really specific like body types. Like this woman's 5'1". Like, okay, great. I can't put her in this like long duster because she's gonna look crazy. So that kind of stuff. So definitely more. It's almost more like personal shopping. But again, you're not trying to elevate anything or trying to make like you're just trying to make people look real. And then yes, we do get invited to a lot of shows from that to come see, and it just depends on a few. Usually I don't go, but it depends. Yeah, but you will, and designers will send me like their lookbooks, and we can see everything, and yeah, talk to them like that.
Because from a designer standpoint, it's actually in your benefit to have you shop now for a show that will air in 8 months, like September show comes out in the spring,
Yeah,
as long as they have the sample to lend, to your point.
Yeah.
Charles' question.
and it can be really hard shopping if you're shooting for a different season. So you'll shoot a scene that's supposed to be August in December, and they're like, we need bathing suits. I'm like, nowhere.
Yeah.
Or you'll be shooting something in August that's supposed to be December, and they're like, we need a down coat. I'm like, where?
Yeah.
Uniqlo.
That's probably harder.
Yeah, but yeah, so that can be really tough. You have to find weird stuff. But yeah, definitely more of like a styling, creative aspect than buying. But there are definitely like similar things.
This was lovely. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Thank you guys.
So I assume from your comment you're okay with me maybe sharing your email.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. So
Absolutely.
I'll send that out to you guys.
Yeah.
And-
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thanks.